Thank you very much, everyone. So I think are we now good to go? We now live? Yes, I'm seeing some nods. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is the August meeting of the DeKalb County Board of Ethics. I'm Alex Joseph, the chair. A few of our members were not able to attend this meeting, but we do still have a quorum. And so we're going to be forging ahead, and this does happen that people have conflicts arise. So the first action item on our agenda is to actually adopt the agenda. So do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
Thanks, Ms. Wayman. And do I have a second?
Second, Nadine.
Thanks, Ms. Ali. And then all in favor of adopting the agenda, can you say aye?
Aye. Aye.
And then does anybody oppose adopting the agenda? And then does anyone abstain? All right, so the agenda has been adopted. The second item is approval of the minutes. Did everyone get an opportunity to look at the minutes? The minutes were excellent.
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the July 21st, 2022 meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Wayman. And then is there a second to adopt the minutes?
Second.
Thanks, Ms. Rogers. And then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And then is anyone opposed to adopting the minutes? And then is anyone abstaining? All right, with that, the minutes from our last meeting have been adopted. We have several administrative items to cover. I will just let the members of the public in attendance know that this is going to be a relatively short public-facing session. And we do have several items to discuss in executive session. And I will, before we break and before we open for comments, I will give a quick outline of what is going to be discussed in executive session, basically the type of outline I normally give when we come back from executive session, so that members of the public know what's being discussed and so that people don't feel like they have to wait around the end of executive session. But as far as looking at our agenda, the first item for the administrative items is the update on the newly appointed ethics officer. It is not a surprise that this is an item on our agenda. It's been a reoccurring item on our agenda, and I have a great update this time, which is that not only has she been approved by the commissioners, she's also now been approved by the CEO. Members of the ethics board, who, by the way, worked incredibly hard to bring this across the finish line, and then members of the public know that this has been a very, very long process. And I don't speak for the whole board here. I just speak for myself. It's been a frustrating process, right? Like it's taken a long time. She is an incredibly qualified candidate, and we're excited to welcome her aboard. And I will say, and one of the items we're going to discuss in executive session is the fact that this process did not go smoothly, and how can we, and this is just going to be something that Ms. Murphy is in fact tasked with, how can we streamline this in the process? Because it would have been easy to lose a qualified candidate if Ms. Murphy had not been willing to work with us and extend us some grace. And some of it is Ms. Murphy has worked for political bodies before, so she knew what to expect. But I just want to be clear that the process was not smooth. So, for example, in Ms. Murphy's original offer letter, her start date was in July. We have obviously blown past that. So now we will need to communicate with her about a new start date. And so the time that we will be without an ethics officer is once again going to be extended. So that's just a reality of this. In addition, this process was so long that as part of the process, or I want to be clear, not as part of the process, but something that happened during the process was that Miss Murphy, who I want to be clear, had very little guidance about the process. She comes in as an applicant. She's not familiar with DeKalb County, which is one of her strengths. She had a conversation with our CEO, with the county CEO, about her compensation. This conversation should not have happened because the board determines Miss Murphy's compensation. And that is just a part of the process that needs to be clarified. If she is meeting with all of these people who are re-interviewing her and sort of in charge of the process, it seems like they control the process, but the board is independent from the county. And so in the updated offer letter that we will be sending Miss Murphy, where we clarify her start date, we will be also clarifying that we control her compensation, because this is a place where it's really important to show firmly that the board operates independently from the county. And I want to be clear, like, those conversations happen during the interview process, but it is important in writing and going forward as we clarify this process to make it clear in writing that we control compensation. And I will say that all of this, that everything I've just put on the record, has bearing on what we're going to talk about in executive session, which deals mostly with ongoing issues, some of which are litigation concerning Miss Wiley. Miss Wiley is still on leave. This week on Monday, we received some updates about Miss Wiley and leave. Specifically, we received back a report from the independent law firm we hired to investigate Miss Wiley's claims. We as a board, through our lawyer, also responded to Miss Wiley's EEOC complaint. So the investigation report and the EEOC complaint are going to be made public on Friday, tomorrow. The reason that they're being shared after the meeting is because we as a board were all volunteers. Our attorney only had the opportunity she received these materials Monday, and we as a board are meeting tonight in executive session to discuss them. But I want to be clear that we will discuss them as a board, but we're releasing them tomorrow. And those items will be agenda items next week as part of the public session for this board. And so we will have updates concerning Miss Wiley's, next month. I think I said next week, next month. So we will have updates about the status of Miss Wiley's leave. And one of the issues that we as a board discussed, but I don't think has been a topic for the public, but I want to clarify it, is that we could not bring back Miss Wiley into full-time employment. Again, she's on leave, she's on paid leave. This leave is not punitive in any way, but she could not come back as an employee until our ethics officer was in place. And so the status of Miss Murphy, the status of our new ethics officer, directly impacted Miss Wiley and her returning to work for us. Whether or not that happens is still up in the air, but it could not even be considered until we had our ethics officer, and she actually has started. So I just want to clarify that. But again, those materials came in on Monday. They will be released tomorrow. We as a board are going to discuss them in ethics in our executive session. And I know there's been lots of questions about the status of the independent investigation, the status of the EEOC complaint, and the status of Miss Wiley on leave. And so there will be some clarity. Decisions are not being made, but at least there'll be some documentation clarity being made public tomorrow. So I just want to clarify that. The next item is the only item we will be voting on, which is in the position that Miss Murphy applied for, the job title was listed as Chief Ethics Officer. In the code, it is described as Ethics Officer. While we are bound by the code, I want to be very clear, calling her Chief Ethics Officer is not going outside of the bounds of the code, especially because we already as a board have hired a Deputy Ethics Officer, which is Miss Wiley's title. And it is important, I believe, in her offer letter, we call Judge Murphy ethics officer, not chief ethics officer. But the vote that I would like to put in front of the board tonight is to reinstate the title of chief ethics officer, because if Ms. Wiley comes back to full-time employment, I want to clarify the fact that Ms. Murphy is the chief ethics officer. In addition, from a fairness perspective, that is the title that she applied to, and I want to honor that. So for those two reasons, I want to put forth a motion to reinstate the title of chief ethics officer. And I want to clarify, I know that I designated Ms. Wiley as our deputy ethics officer. That was her outward facing title, not the title that was listed in the DeKalb County payroll system. So I just want to clarify that, but that's how she was referred to in board meeting minutes. So again, and that would be the same for the chief ethics role, which is that would be how she'd be listed on our website. That's how we would designate her. That doesn't necessarily indicate how she would be designated by DeKalb County payroll. But again, the reason behind calling her the chief ethics officer is that we understand that she is in charge of the office. She's the top dog. And then also it's because it's the position that she applied to. So do I hear a motion to reinstate or to designate Ms. Murphy as chief ethics officer of DeKalb County Board of Ethics?
Motion to have Ms. Murphy as the chief ethics officer of our ethics board.
Thank you.
Motion.
Yes. And I think the title would be Chief Ethics Officer of DeKalb County. Yes.
Of DeKalb County. Yes.
I know I added on the board part. And then do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ms. Swayman. And then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thanks, Ms. Rogers. And then any opposed? And then any abstaining? Okay, so the motion to designate Ms. Murphy as Chief Ethics Officer has passed. Thank you. And then our final update before we get to public comment is about citizens' concerns. So at the last meeting, I put out a call, please call me if you have concerns. I'm very interested in hearing from members of the public. I think that there's a very certain type of person that volunteers to serve on boards. I think there's a very certain type of person who applies to positions like chief ethics officer. And I think that DeKalb County is full of lots of different type of people, some of whom may not want to step forward and serve. So I want to make sure that it's not just the people on this board, that we're hearing from the public, and not just the public during public comments. And I've been really grateful. Several citizens have reached out, and there's actually been some consensus. People have had similar recommendations. And I want to be clear, I'm just going to describe those recommendations now. Unfortunately, these are not recommendations we can seriously take under consideration because we don't have an ethics officer in place. I will also say that as soon as we get Judge Murphy in place, I plan to put her on the road and put her to work. I want to do town halls. I want her to meet with citizens. I want her to have open office hours. And so these concerns are just going to be concerns that are channeled directly to her and are going to be fleshed out as she meets with members of the public and as she presents to the board. So the first one is the idea of let's see how it was called in the agenda, a citizen's advocate. So many people who have had interactions with the board in the past feel like the process was not fully explained to them. And in talking to Ms. Rogers, our clerk, about this, we were discussing there are various ways that this could be addressed. So we could have a volunteer serve as a person to shepherd complainants through the process. We could have our ethics officer serve in that role. Ms. Rogers, our clerk, could step up, but also we could have various training materials, including YouTube videos that we created ourselves internally that would walk people that want to file an ethics concern through the process. So those would be publicly available materials on our website. And we could also offer trainings to the public about how to file an ethics concern. So for example, the Georgia Supreme Court has a really wonderful website that walks you through what to do if you want to file a lawsuit and you don't have a lawyer. And so we would have a similar website full of resources. So I think that's a I don't know if it's going to be a website. I don't know if it's going to be a new person we hire. I don't know if it's going to be a volunteer, but that was a concern or a recommendation that came up several times. And I thought it was a really strong recommendation. And then the next recommendation was that we hire an external communications consultant. The idea was that the DeKalb County Board of Ethics has an image problem, that we are operating a deficit, that people don't like us or trust us. And so the idea was we would hire a consultant to help us with our imaging, our messaging. And I, when talking to this citizen, I was very clear that I want people to call me. But I also want to be clear, I'm just the chair. And in the ethics code, the chair has no more power than any other member of the board. I cannot sign contracts. I can't bind the board. Everything has to be in public. Everything has to be voted on. And so in particular with that recommendation, that involves money and signing a contract. And so that's nothing I could agree to. And again, it's just something that first, Ms. Murphy may want to consider, but also it's something that we probably would have to discuss when talking about budget. So during the budgetary process, we'd have to talk about that. And I also brought that concern to Ms. Rogers. Ms. Rogers, as our clerk, has some institutional knowledge, and she felt like a lot of our image issues, the fact that we're not very polished, a lot of that could be addressed through adequate training. And so it is my hope when we have Ms. Murphy in place, we can have a board retreat and a board training and really talk about norms, expectations, communicating with the public, all sorts of things. And we, frankly, that training has been neglected as we've struggled without an ethics officer. So I just want to be clear that we are lacking some training, and we recognize that. And the thing about the ethics board is we have two jobs, which is to investigate ethics claims and to do trainings. And that means training ourselves and admitting when there hasn't been enough training. So I don't hesitate to say that we need some training, because training is continual, and we can all stand to learn something, especially as a board that operates in public and has to work as a group. So those were some of the recommendations I received. I really appreciated everyone that called. And so thank you so much. It really meant a great deal. And one citizen reached out and gave me just a list of other people to call. So I really appreciate that. That is our last agenda item. In my Judge Murphy update, in our chief ethics officer update, I laid out what we will be talking about in executive session. We will not be coming back from executive session and voting on anything. So I know that some people want to know that. And we will not have public comment after our executive session, because I anticipate our executive session will go very long, and I have already briefed what we will be talking about. So it is now time for public comment.
Okay, very well. For members of our public, we will grant access to each person based on hopefully the order in which you raise your hand. At the appointed time, I will call out your name or your phone number, and we ask you to go ahead and unmute and speak for no more than 3 minutes. We do ask that everyone refrains from derogatory or offensive language, of course. So please indicate if you would like to make a public comment by either raising your hand if you're on a computer, or by pressing #2 if you are on the phone. Okay, I see one hand raised. Ray Johnson, if you could just give me one moment. Okay, you now have the ability to make your comments. Ms. Ray Johnson.
My name is Ray Johnson. I live at 2546 Wilson Woods Drive. I've been continuously involved with 3 ethics boards over the last 10 years. And in each and every meeting, there are mistakes that are being made that should not be made. And that's one of the reasons that you need to have a messaging person, a communications officer, whatever you wish to call them. But if the law says ethics officer, you have no authority whatsoever to change the title of the ethics officer to chief ethics officer. You just cannot do that. I mean, let's be realistic. Kristen Rogers should be on a contract. Wiley should have been on a contract, and you won't run into these EEOC problems. They should not be on the county payroll because the law says that the board is independent. You're not independent if your employees are on the county payroll. And it's unclear to me whether they are or not. The board needs to have outside training. You can't train yourself, or we're going to end up being in a county that has a culture of corruption with an ethics board that is part of the culture of corruption. And you talk about an image problem. The general public, 670,000 people in DeKalb County, just laugh at you. It's ridiculous. So let's make an effort to try to be a little bit more careful. And if the board members haven't read the law, please read the law and please follow the law. Thank you very much. I appreciate your service. It's the end of my comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Again, if there is anyone who would like to make a comment, please indicate you'd like to do so by raising your hand if you're on a computer or by pressing #2. Okay, next we have Pat Killingsworth. If you could just give me one moment there. Okay, Pat Killingsworth, you are now granted the ability to make your comment. Thank you so much.
I would like to, well, first, thank you all for being here and for doing what you're doing. I was on the Board of Ethics for a number of years prior to the new legislation. I know how hard it is. I know how difficult the work is and that you're volunteers. I'm watching all of you put the effort into making this Board of Ethics work, making it relevant, making it something that we can all be proud of. Does anyone make mistakes? I suppose so, but I am really pleased to see the steps that you're taking, the path that you're making for citizens in DeKalb County. And I just wanted to express that and my thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. And next we have a comment from a phone number that's 404-803-4101. You could just give me one moment there. Okay, go ahead and make your comment, please.
Thank you very much. Steve Benny, 1083 Seville Drive, Clarkston, Georgia, 30021. My only public comment is that I was unable to get into the Zoom meeting because the https DeKalbCounty.Georgia.zoom.us/J/8813743267 will not work on your on tonight's agenda. I was watching off of DCTV 23 on their Ustream, but there was no way to get in directly to the meeting. And I don't know if that was a problem on my end or not, but your Zoom address does not seem to be working tonight. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry about that, Mr. Binney. Thank you for your comment, though, and thank you for going above and beyond to get here tonight. So I appreciate that.
And certainly the county will look into that to make sure that that link is operable. I can say that on behalf of the IT department. Okay, if there's anyone else that would like to make a comment, please indicate you'd like to do so by either raising your hand if you're on the computer or pressing #2 if you're on the phone. Okay, at this time, Madam Chair, I see no other hands.
Diamond, I thought, well, Joe Arrington had his hand raised.
Oh, I see it. One moment. Thank you for that help. And Mr. Arrington, I am sending you an unmute. Mr. Arrington, please don't kill me for that oversight. Thank you so much, Mr. Arrington. You now have the ability to speak.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
I didn't have a prepared public comment to make, but in view of the previous comment by Mr. Benny, I just wanted to echo that, and I had the exact same problem. So I don't know where the glitch is, but we couldn't get there through what was posted on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington, for letting us know. And DeKalb County, DeKalb County's IT will look into that. So we appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I will just say that our regular IT guy, John, who's the best, is on a much deserved vacation, and we're thrilled for him. So I think we are now ready to break for executive session. Before we break, I just want to say that I know Tom Woodward is on this call, and Tom and I are on another board together. So hello, Tom Woodward. Okay, I think we can now break for executive session. Do we have to vote on that? No, we have to vote.
Yes.
Oh, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so is there a vote for executive session?
I move that we convene to executive session.
Thank you. And then is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. All right, all in favor for executive session, please say aye.
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 And then all opposed? And then anyone abstaining? No? All right, we will now break for executive session. And as a reminder, we actually all log off of this Zoom call and we log on to the executive session Zoom. So we will be leaving. So thank you so much. All right, thank you very much. We are now done with executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn executive session?
Motion to adjourn executive session.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. And is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Wayman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And any opposed? Any sitting this one out? No. And so with that, we've now adjourned executive session. And while we were in executive session, I just want to welcome member Simulton Trimino. Ms. Simulton Trimino, came in during executive session. So I just want to note that for the record that she's present. Turning to the agenda, I think all that is left is to state what happened in executive session, which is, as stated previously, we discussed the status of the EOC complaint pending against us. We discussed the fact that the investigators finished their report, and that report will be released to the public on Friday. Specifically, it's going to the AJC. And then we discussed the status of Miss Murphy's employment, which is a personnel issue. So those are the matters that we discussed. And our next meeting is September 15th. And is there any other housekeeping matters that I need to attend to, Ms. Rogers?
Yeah, motion to approve the executive session affidavit.
Oh, yes. Is there a motion to approve the executive session affidavit?
Motion to approve that
Thank you,
executive
Ms.
session
Ali.
affidavit.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. And then all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And then any opposed? And then any abstaining? All right, so the executive session affidavit, which I stated previously, has been approved. And so I think that the only motion left is a motion to adjourn our meeting. Oh, yes, Bill.
Before we go, I'd just like to say thank you to Mr. Arrington and to my longtime friend, Ms. Killingsworth, who have stayed through the duration and are still doing all they can to help DeKalb County be all it can be. So thank you, Mr. Arrington and Ms. Killingsworth.
Yes, and we had, people have to figure out Zoom complications. So I'm deeply appreciative of our members of the public that attended. So yes, thank you. All right, so is there a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Wayman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. I will say these votes are much more joyous than the other ones. All right. And then all in favor of adjourning our meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or any opposed? All right, we are now adjourned. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ms. Lewis, for doing such a fantastic job.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you.
Thank
are
you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Good night, everybody.
everyone.